attention is this? You know, folky futurist Bob Dylan once wrote, there's a battle outside, it's raging. It'll shake your windows and rattle your walls. What's the next line? The times they are?
They're changing.
The times they were changing. Now what's interesting is that poem was written in 1963. The most important line, the most important stanza from that poem still resonates. The line that is drawn, the curse that is cast. The first, you want a candy shot, guys? Here you go. Okay, now leave me alone. No, I'm joking. The line that is drawn, the curse that is cast. The first one now might later be last. The times they are changing. You know, what's interesting is, you know, you read books on change, you've gone to workshops and seminars on change, you've talked about change, but the reality is it's still the threshold challenge that every one of us has to rise above. Now, it's interesting, the title of this presentation, is, you know, change is inevitable, building your brand for the future. And by the way, thank you, Casey, for that. It was more of a eulogy, it wasn't an introduction. I was sitting back and thinking, God, what a great guy Ira was. Yeah, I can't wait to tell my wife. You know, I've done a lot of things in my consulting and speaking career, but I never followed a yodeler. She was amazing. It's amazing. You know, I tell my kids they're going to ask me, where were you, Dad? But you know, interesting, and I spoke to Casey a little while ago, he doesn't know this. I've changed this session. I have you for 4 straight hours. Lock the doors, man. This is S training. But see, okay, so we see this concept called change is inevitable, building your brand. But here is what you need to understand. Here's what you need to take to the bank. Change is inevitable, but the reality is growth is optional. Change will continue. If you don't understand or get change, I want you to go home and pick up your high school annual and look at your face. How many people here have been to a reunion recently? Okay, isn't it amazing? Oh, 3 people raised their hand, so none of you graduated high school. That's so sad. You know, you go back to your 30th or 40th reunion and you bump into someone and they say, gee, you haven't changed a bit. Oh yeah, I was this short in high school, I was bald, I had gray hair, I had a limp. Yeah, I had 2 hip replacements in high school. Which is just unbelievable. But change is inevitable, growth is in fact optional. So here's the question that you CSI members, you non-members who should be CSI members, here's what you need to be thinking about. You need to be thinking about companies and organizations that have gone from distinction to extinction because they couldn't adapt and adjust to change. So, I spent a little time in the college classroom. I'm the president of a consulting company in Atlanta. We're the longest running retainer-based consultant in Coca-Cola's history. 21 years. We just signed another 3-year contract. I think they forgot about us and keep direct depositing, so I wouldn't repeat this story. But above and beyond my consulting work, some of my speaking and writing work, I do spend some time in the college classroom. I'm a visiting instructor at Michigan State University. I'm a visiting instructor at the University of Notre Dame. I know that the rest of you are wondering, how can a guy named Ira Blumenthal teach at Notre Dame? It's really simple. When I get to South Bend, I change my name to Irish O. Blumenthal. The kids aren't that smart today, but companies and industries have gone from distinction to extinction. So for example, please participate here with me. How many of you regularly, well let me ask you, how many of you flew into this marvelous conference? Raise your hand. On Eastern Airlines. What did you fly in on? So, why didn't you fly Eastern? Doesn't exist. Oh, so Dylan wrote the line it is drawn, the curse it is cast, the first one now might later be last. Eastern Airlines was the #1 carrier in the United States at one point, ladies and gentlemen. The #3 carrier in the world, and they ceased to exist. How many of you regularly go out to dinner with your families? Please raise your hand. Okay, to Howard Johnson's. How many people have never eaten at Howard Johnson's? Probably some of you. Howard Johnson's was an innovator. When Howard Johnson's restaurants were built, before there was a Cracker Barrel, right down here in Lebanon, Tennessee, if I'm not mistaken. Before there was a Hard Rock, they sold stuff out front. They had peanut brittle, and they had candy and t-shirt. Howard Johnson's had signature products before there was ever a Big Mac or a Whopper. They had Hojo Cola. Friday night was clam night, if I'm not mistaken. They had alternative channels of distribution. They had Howard Johnson's on the New Jersey Turnpike and the Pennsylvania Turnpike. They were innovators. They had 3,000 restaurants going into 1970. Today, with the exception of 300 hotels, there are 53 of them left. Do you believe in strategic planning? You know what kind of plan you got to have to go from 3,000 to 53?
Zero.
We're talking about resource allocation.